for us, Newzroom Afrika's senior reporter, Qaanitah Hunter, who has been tracking Nkabane's rise to this position, and she joins us live. Qaanitah, good evening to you. Let's start with the latest.
Sure.
Has there been an explanation for why Minister Nkabane missed a sitting in Parliament on Friday?
Well, she said it was because she had to deliver a keynote address at a TVET college in Buffalo City in the Eastern Cape on Friday. Those pictures were posted on her social media. And we know that she had delegated functions of TVET colleges to her deputy, Buti Manamela. And that apology that she had given to Parliament was rejected, and Parliament saying that she has the last chance now on the 22nd of July, which is Tuesday, to come and give her side of the story. Subsequent to that, the committee heard from Terry Matau, from other officials from her department, who said they had nothing to do with that actual selection of those politically connected and controversial names that came out on that SETA board chairpersons. And while the minister has said that that process will be restarted, etc., there is a fundamental question as to whether or not she lied to Parliament when she said there was an independent panel that recommended those names and it was not her that did so. And all of the people that she named said they had nothing to do with the panel.
So let's talk about the individual here, Nobuhle Nkabane. The general public of South Africa got to know her, I would argue, at the time that she was appointed as Minister of Higher Education and Training. Before then, I'm not so sure that she was a well-known figure. Where does she come from, and why has she become so controversial?
Yeah, Nobuhle Nkabane comes from KwaZulu-Natal. She played a significant role in the Youth League and the Women's League in KwaZulu-Natal. And then she was on the list, the KwaZulu-Natal list from KZN to Parliament in 2019. So she's been a member of Parliament since 2019, mostly a backbencher, a member of the Sports Portfolio Committee, a member of the Higher Education Portfolio Committee in the past. She had one high-profile position, which was the Section 194 committee that was investigating President Nkabane, but also quite muted. We knew her somewhat when President Cyril Ramaphosa appointed her as Gwede Mantashe's deputy in 2021. Right. She was the Deputy Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy, and then quickly became Minister of Higher Education 3 years later in 2024.
And so the controversy around her remains these SETA board appointments, which at first she tried to lay at the doorstep of Advocate Terry Matau. As you say in the introduction, she has yet to give that explanation to Parliament, and Tuesday is going to be that important day. Let's understand, therefore, how these names may have been selected, because these are politically connected individuals, some of them individuals that we've seen in South African politics.
Absolutely. And so this matter has been persisting since March this year. It's been a long time. And Parliament has been breathing down her neck, firstly, in trying to understand how were these people appointed. And she was the one that went to the committee and said, well, they were selected by eminent persons, and they asked her, who are them? She said, Google them. And you'd recall that moment of the gum-chewing incident. And that created a lot of concern around her disrespect for accountability, as well as concerns around whether or not she has what it takes to lead such an embattled portfolio. You know that higher education is problematic if you talk about NASFAs, if you talk about transformation in universities, if you talk about, there's so many parts of the system that needs urgent reform. Yeah. And so when the minister was appointed, it was welcome because she came after a long tenure of Dr. Bladen Nzimande. She was young, she's well educated, someone who had a PhD from UKZN, studied at Stellenbosch. You know, some say she's currently even pursuing some studies in London, for example. And so she's a very well-educated, young, vibrant woman, and it was welcomed. And then suddenly you saw an alliance of people calling for her dismissal that was uncanny. You would see the Democratic Alliance, but at the same time you would see the ANC Alliance, SASCO, saying, well, she can't have this position, that the president must relieve her of this position. And so the question is, after showing that disdain to Parliament, after missing other efforts to appear before the committee, she eventually sent a list of names that said, these are the people that were responsible for selecting those politically connected individuals. Yeah. And that panel has come out to say, this includes people, people like her chief of staff, people like an advisor in her office, a chief director in the department, and then obviously we know Advocate Terry Matau. Now, formally, all of them have now came to Parliament, or at least 2 of them were physically in Parliament, but 4 out of the 5 say we had nothing to do with this process. And now the last remaining thing is for Parliament to put to her the question of whether or not you misled Parliament. And Terry Matau said very clearly on Friday that he believes that the minister misled Parliament. Now, the question comes to consequences. For the last 6 weeks, the president has had a report from the minister as to her versions of events. He also obviously knows what has happened and unfolded in the public domain, and yet there has been no consequences, with the presidency only saying that the president is applying his mind. Now entities like SASCO says after Friday's debacle, after further disdain for the accountability, the president must take action. Let's take a listen to what they told us earlier.
What we are waiting for is for her to be removed. And honestly speaking, there is no need for constant engagements on something that is so obvious that people can see. We have shown on so many levels the level of incompetency, and now it's showing, misleading South Africans, and not just only misleading South Africans, not going to account, not only going to account. I mean, it's fishy that all your senior officials are not going to the portfolio committee, all of the senior officials. It's problematic. And I think it really raises eyebrows. And once again, we are still calling for the president, who we would say is a main employer, to remove her from office. You're having someone who is young coming into the office, educated to the point of NQF level number 10. She's a PhD. So when we looked at it, we saw a breath of fresh air coming into the office. So in terms of her track record, her having previously served as a deputy minister of another portfolio.
SASCO is, as you put it, an ANC-aligned student movement. So very interesting that calls for her removal come from that structure. Very quickly, the punishment that's been meted out to people who have misled Parliament in the past. What have we seen?
We've seen them being called before Parliament's Ethics Committee and criminal charges. Lying to Parliament is a criminal offence and can lead to jail time. And so it is absolutely serious. This is not about a process that has been restarted fully. This is about whether or not the minister lied when she was held accountable by Parliament, and that we know will be closer to that truth on Tuesday. And obviously everyone's looking at the president for what action he is going to take as her boss.
Interesting that the president would wait for Parliament, I think, to pronounce itself. A process man, or perhaps, as people say, someone who does not want to take action ahead of everything else, instead wanting to align things to process before he can make a move. Thank you very much, Qaanitah Hunter.